In this short video, we're going to look at how to compare two decimals. Let's start with these two. Which is larger, 45.372 or 45.38? That's what we're trying to figure out here. Now, before we do that, there's one really key concept you have to understand. If you understand this, then everything else is downhill. And that concept is adding zeros to the end of a decimal doesn't change its value. The important thing here is to the end, right? You can, for example, if I start with 2.9, I can add a 0 to that to make it 2.90. That has no effect on the value of the decimal. I could add two zeros, 2.900, or I could add a whole bunch of zeros, as many as I want. All these decimals have the same value. Another example, 72.02. I can add one zero, I can add two zeros, I can add as many as I want. Again, the key is I'm adding them to the end of the decimal portion of that number. Last one, 0.006. Again, I can keep the 006 and just start adding zeros, as many as I want, until I get tired of adding zeros, and it has no impact on the value of the number. Again, the key is at the end. So if I start with 2.9, I can't add a 0 before the 9. 1 0 or 2 zeros or how many. I can't add any zeros ahead of the 9. I could only add zeros after the 9. This one, 0.04. Again, I can't add a 0 ahead of that. I can only add zeros after it, as we showed in those first three examples. This is the key to comparing decimals. All right, let's go back to the original problem. Which is larger, the 45.372 or the 45.38? So the steps to compare these two. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write those two numbers, one right on top of the other, right above the other, and I'm going to make sure the decimal points line up. So here I've written the 45.372, and right underneath that, and you can see the decimal points, one's right on top of the other, I write 45.38. Second step, if it's necessary, and we'll see in a minute when it is, I'm going to add enough zeros to one of those numbers so that both numbers have the same number of decimal digits. And again, the key here is decimal digits. So if I look at 45.372, it has three decimal digits, right? Three numbers to the right of the decimal point. That's the 372. But if I look at the 45.38, it only has two decimal digits, the 3 and the 8. So I need to add zeros to one of those so that they both have the same number of decimal digits. And in this case, I'm just going to add 1 0 to the 0.38. So now both numbers have three decimal digits. In other words, they have three numbers to the right of the decimal point. The final step to compare these, now I ignore the decimal point as if it's not there, and I just compare those two numbers as if they were whole numbers. So the 45.372, I'm going to ignore the decimal and just get rid of it altogether. Same thing with the 45.380, and now I just compare these two. So the first one, 45,372, the second one, 45,380. I can see that the second number is larger than the first. So my 45.38 is larger than the 45.372. Let's do another example. How about 2.08 or 2.008? Which one of those is larger? Same steps, right? We're going to write one right above the other, making sure that the decimals line up. Second step, I'm going to look and see, do I have the same number of decimal digits in both numbers? If I don't, then I'm going to add zeros to the end of whichever one has fewer decimal digits. In this case, it's the 2.08, so I'm going to have to add a 0 to that, and now they both have three decimal digits, three numbers to the right of the decimal point. The last step, I drop the decimal point in both numbers and just compare them as if they were large integers. So the top one is 2080, the bottom is 2008. Comparing those two, it's clear that 2080 is greater than 2008, so my original number, 2.08, is larger than 2.008. Another little variation, let's do one here. Which is larger, 823.37 or 822.38? Again, same steps, we'll walk through them. We're going to write one right above the other, making sure the decimals line up. They both have, in this case, they both have two decimals, so I don't need to add any to either one. They have the same number of decimal digits. I drop the decimal point and I look at the numbers just by themselves. Sometimes you might want to put commas in there to help you to compare them. But the top one is 82,337. The bottom is 82,238. Those two numbers clearly, 82,337 is larger than 82,238. Last one. How about these two? 17.09 or 8.992. If you look at just the decimals, it's the one looks like it might be bigger. So we'll do again. We'll walk through the same steps. I write them both. Now look, I've got the decimals lined up on top of each other, so, and then the numbers will fall wherever they fall, the digits. But the decimals, so I had them sort of, in order to get them lined up, the 8 is underneath the 7. Second step, I'm looking at the number of decimal digits. In the first number, 17.09, it has 2 decimal digits, the 09. The 8.992 has 3 decimals, 3 digits to the right of the decimal. So I'm going to have to add 1 to the 17.09, and now both numbers have 3 decimal digits. Last step, I'm going to lose the decimal point, right? Just ignore it altogether and compare the two numbers. So now I have 17,090 compared to 8,992. That top number must be greater than the bottom, so 17.09 is larger than 8.992. All right, that's it. We'll do a lot more practice of these in class. Again, remember and perhaps write down that key concept of the fact that you can add zeros to the end of a decimal and it has no effect on its value. As I say, we'll do a lot of these in class, but if you need to go back and look at the video again, take a quick look at it. And thanks for watching.